Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Monday, September 30th, 2024. I'm Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins, the senior minister here at Sunshine Cathedral.
I am Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, the executive minister. Faith and religion can be complicated for the LGBTQ community. Surveys show that evangelical faith is the justification for the greatest attacks on the queer community. The Queer God Squad is going to explore our religious community. Let's explore the big news of the day and what it means to you.
I am Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell, the Minister of Connections. This is live, and then we are available on demand. If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform and social media.
At Sunshine Cathedral, we're here to tell you that you are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. Violence against queer people is an intersectional problem. Violence against lesbians and gay men has captured media attention, but these reports tend to focus on one segment of the LGBTQ community, white, middle-class men, and largely ignore the part of the community that may suffer a larger share of the violence: racial minorities, poor people, and women. In his book, Violence Against Queer People, sociologist Doug Meyer offers an investigation of anti-queer violence that focuses on the role played by race, class, and gender. Drawing on interviews with 47 victims of violence, Meyer shows that LGBTQ people encounter different forms of violence and perceive this violence differently based on their race, class, and gender identity. His research highlights the extent of which other forms of discrimination share queer people's experiences of abuse. For example, lesbians and transgender women often describe violent incidents in which a sexual or a misogynist component was introduced, and queer people of color often aren't sure if anti-queer violence was based solely on their sexuality or whether racism or sexism might have been part of it. Media focus on white, middle-class victims oversimplifies the nature of anti-queer violence. In fact, attempts to reduce anti-queer violence that ignores race, class, and gender run the risk of helping only the most privileged gay subjects. And now, the Queer God Squad has a few thoughts to share. And I understand that our senior minister has a wonderful statement ready for this, and I'm going to switch it right over to him for his comments.
I have a prepared statement. I don't know that it's wonderful, but you've got, this is your story. You can kick it off.
No, let's go. I think it's going to be one of those topics we're going to get into, so balance me out. Balance me before I go there.
I might get off the topic a little bit. Because when you were going through the story, it just occurred to me, this actually occurred to me for a while now, that in our community, that white gay men often defer to their white privilege as a way of navigating homophobia. That they will vote, if I have to vote for money, if I have to vote for privilege or power or for inclusion of LGBTQ people, I might vote against my LGBTQ interest in order to have influence or power or money or whatever. Not me personally, but I've seen that a lot, where people are willing to be almost semi-closeted, or to vote for people who say horrible things about LGBTQ people, or to even support things that are discriminatory against LGBTQ people, because it benefits their pocketbook, they think, or their business, or their position, or whatever, keeps them safe in a structure. And I've also seen people who call themselves allies, but if it threatens their white privilege or their economic privilege at all, then their allyship is meaningless. That they're only there in words, and only up until it costs them something. This is part of the politics of the day, where where governors will say, "My state is where woke comes to die," where if you teach what actually happened in racial history. Well, you can't now in Florida. You can't teach about horrible things that have happened to people who weren't white, and it happened because they weren't white. and so on. So there's a lot of transphobia, a lot of homophobia, a lot of racism, a lot of economic injustice, a lot of xenophobia, and it's in the politics, it's in the rhetoric, it's in the platforms. And if you vote right now in a certain way, you are voting for all of that. You are voting for all that and would say, well, but I want my guns, or I think it's better for the economy, or first of all, the economy thing is always a lie. It's not better for the economy. Yeah. And so, because I'm all sort of worked up about that, I think there's a political energy right now that's feeding into the violence, the violence against people of color, queers of color, women queers of color, and on and on. Women queers of color who have disability issues. There's so much violence against the other in and toward the queer community, and I think it's a byproduct of the politics of the day. And so about that, I just want to say this. An unpopular, intellectually stifled, morally bankrupt one-term president who lost the popular vote by almost 3 million votes, and then 4 years later lost by 7 million votes, refused to concede, incited a brutal insurrection in an attempt to overturn election results, twice impeached, boycotted the swearing in of his successor, first former president to be indicted, 34 felony convictions, adjudicated rapist. And that's beside grab him by the pussy, shithole countries, Mexico will pay for the wall, his tragic mishandling of COVID, birtherism, lock her up, tax cuts for billionaires, the apology he owes the exonerated five, and packing SCOTUS with anti-choice liars who said under oath they considered Roe settled law. And all that's beside collusion with Russia, tax evasion, draft dodging, less job growth than his predecessor and his successor, gassing peaceful protesters, and saying he wants to be dictator for a day. My God, who with any sort of conscience or memory would even consider voting for him? How much must one hate immigrants, refugees, LGBTQ people, women, BIPOC, the academy, the environment, civil rights, and general prosperity to vote for him over almost anyone with a brain or a soul? I'm sad, scared, disgusted, and furious that he has any chance at all. He wasn't a good president, and you'd have to look hard to find many people who are worse humans. Speaking only for myself, not for the other members of the Queer God Squad, not for the Happening Out Television Network, not for the Sunshine Cathedral, speaking only for myself, a voting citizen, and no one else, I distrust anyone who finds him even remotely acceptable. I expect to have room for many less friends, tens of, maybe 20, 30, 40 less friends in social media because of this statement, which I'm also sharing on social media. But seriously, what the actual fuck? Darth Vader, Jabba the Hutt, Hannibal Lecter, his hero, Dracula, Satan, and Mussolini can't be on the ballot. So is he just the booby prize for sociopaths? How is it even necessary or controversial to point out that he's a goddamn narcissist, criminal, menace, unfit for leadership? It makes no sense for any decent person to support him to any degree. Now, this isn't about party, but about naming a racist, felonious grifter and trying to protect our country from him. There are people from more than one party who share this sentiment, though I am not claiming to speak for them. This is from me, a voter, to whom it may concern. So please register to vote, and please vote every time.
You know, so much around race, class, privilege, all the mixing bowl stuff that really have for years worked to decentralize us, keep us apart, not bring us together. And specifically when you look at it in the LGBT community and what privilege does and can do and how it isolates, there needs to be this symbol, even if it's just a notion, that brings us back to hope, that brings us back to joy, that brings us back to we're all in this together. but this rallying cry to lift up, and I will call him the Antichrist, to lift up and pay homage to the Antichrist in a way that as kids we were taught, oh, the Antichrist is coming, oh, believing in 60, I mean, all this horrible stuff. And I never believe I will live to see a day when it will actually manifest.
When this thing shows up.
When it manifests itself in a way that's like, holy shit, mama told me about this. This is the things that we talked about. And then to see that play out in a way that trickles down, and I'm going to say it, to the LGBT community, that there are people in our own community that will support this.
Or sit it out, which is just as bad.
Yeah. Or not take a stand, just sit out, but will support this action all in the name of, you know what, he's not that bad after all.
Yeah.
Or you know what, I'm in that 1%, so I'm going to benefit from whatever he does.
That's the thing.
And there are less in the 1% of us than there are in the 1% of them. And yet that's what the benefit is all about. And they're not thinking about how this affects children, adults,
The environment.
Our partnerships around the world. This is truly about what can I get out of it for me?
Yes.
Because my privilege has only given me those lenses to look at this from. It's about me and what I can get for myself.
And if I'm worried about if I'm more worried about my guns than your autonomy, or more about my capital gains than I am your ability to marry, I'm not a good person.
Yeah.
I'm just not. That's just not what good people do. If it's more about my pocketbook or my weapons or my privilege or my preferences than your ability to live happily, safe, loving lives, that makes me by definition not a good person.
Yeah. This is just hard for me to understand. I know that I can't understand it because it's not of my experience. But when people will choose the money, the guns, the power, the privilege over other people's lives, I'm apoplectic. I don't even know what to say about it sometimes. It's overwhelming.
But that manifests as the violence because these
Exactly.
aren't people. These aren't people.
Right,
So
exactly.
you can treat them anyway. In fact, they're not only not people, but they're somehow a threat. They're a danger. They're just bringing the world to a crashing end or whatever.
Right.
And so you get to do whatever the hell you want to because they're not even really people.
Yeah.
Well, that attitude, and then they say, well, I never said those words. You didn't
You didn't have to. You
Yeah.
didn't have to. If you support this kind of political environment, guess what?
Yeah.
You don't have to say the words.
Right.
Actions speak far louder.
I
You
just
know
tossed the
exactly.
match. I didn't know it was going to land on the curtains and burn
Yeah.
the whole house down. You knew it was a possibility.
Yeah.
You really did.
There was a time when we would be at the crossroads. But when we got to the crossroads, the conversation was different.
Yeah.
The conversation about how do we get to this crossroad and how do we forge a way forward that benefits everyone. At this intersectional problem we have now, no one cares about it.
No, they don't.
It's light a match and burn the whole damn country down because it's all about me, and as long as I'm in charge or I'm protected, then I'm okay. And that's what for me, the intersectional problem is all about. No one really wants to own it, and no one really wants to care. And for those who are owning it and are willing to stand up for the democracy and what's right and do the right thing, they're being torn to shreds left and right. And I would say, continue to stand.
Please.
Yes.
Fight the good
Please.
fight.
Yes.
As John Lewis would say, we need to continue troublemakers
good
and
trouble.
good troublemakers.
Good
Or
trouble.
by Rustin, we need angelic troublemakers.
Angelic-
I think we're the angelic troublemakers. And I think, it's possible that we're just going to be okay. 3 million more people voted the first time, 7 million more people voted this time, and yet this person who has lost the popular vote twice has more support now than he ever has. And that's terrifying to me. Now, I think we can prevail. I hope we will prevail. I think we might prevail this time.
Yeah.
But if we don't do something about this systemically, if we don't do something about the hearts of the people of this country, this is going to be what we're talking about every 4 years
Yeah.
until the empire just takes over. And empires implode. Empires never last. And the U.S. has been an empire in all but name for a while. So if we push it over the edge to make it official, I think the days are numbered. And it won't be like the thousands of years that Rome was in charge. It'll be more like the decades that Napoleon was in charge.
Yeah.
It's going to fall quickly.
Yeah.
So don't let it happen. Vote. Register to vote, and vote for anything that isn't cruel and stupid and selfish and ugly. It's not that hard. It's just not that hard. I've only voted for 2 or 3 parties in my whole life. They've all been progressive to some degree. But it's not even about that anymore.
No.
This is about human. Like vote for humanity. Vote for conscience. Vote for decency. Because it's really down to that now.
It is indeed.
Well, that's today with the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun, but also to tackle the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And to discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about. Sunshine Cathedral is the world's largest progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together. And we're all in this together. Remember that.
And just remember, make no difference how bad it gets,
Yeah.
how dim it may seem, you are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.